Have you ever felt like you're too busy for God and you're not sure how you can bring Him into your busy life, your busy schedule? It is so easy to get into this daily grind where we pack on responsibility on top of responsibility on top of responsibility, which is now convincing us that we don't have enough time for God. And on top of that, we get distracted so easily in this day and age. There are literally teams of people whose sole job is to make sure that you do not stop scrolling on social media. So what do? Let's break down 4 practical steps that you can do right now to bring God into your busy life. Let's get into it. Before we get into the 4 practical steps, let's make sure to set some foundation. If you want to skip this part, it's totally fine. I left some chapters for you in the playhead and also in the description. So you can just jump ahead to the practical steps and get started right now. But first, I recommend listening to who the foundation is for. The foundation is for those people who believe that if they are not doing the most they possibly can do for God, then they are failing Him. If that's you, then definitely watch this part. It is important to recognize that we all go through seasons where it is difficult to pursue God, but know that He loves spending time with you, whether it's 10 minutes or even just 5 minutes, if that's all you have. A majority of the time, it isn't God putting these standards on us. It's either us or we're getting it from our community. Jesus came to bring relationship to us, not put us underneath the law. And you might be thinking, yeah, but I'm not doing that. I'm not under the law. If you're keeping score, then you are. The basis of the law is that you need to be performing to meet a specific set of standards, and there will be punishment if you mess up. But Jesus came to preach a message of grace, not put you underneath the law. Let's take a look at a time where Jesus was walking with His disciples in the fields on the day of the Sabbath. If you don't know, the Sabbath was a day of rest. And the rules that were in place at that time, the law was that you literally don't do anything. They created this super high standard that man put forth, not God. And so when the disciples were walking through this field and they were hungry, they began to eat. And this did not sit well with the Pharisees. They began to question Him, how dare your disciples eat on the day of the Sabbath? And Jesus does have a larger response, and I highly recommend you go into it and read it. But one of the things He points out is that the Sabbath was not made to be served. The Sabbath was made to serve. God put the Sabbath in place for us as protection for us because we have a tendency to get lost in our work. And we do this all the time. We shift the direction of what God has placed on us in place of standards that we create for ourselves, or we get it from our own community. But Jesus later even reprimands the Pharisees, saying that they are following the doctrine of man over the doctrine of God, meaning they are adding to it. They're adding so much more to what God has created and then holding themselves to those standards. I literally do this all the time. I've even done this recently. God gave me instructions, and then I took that and multiplied it, and then I started beating myself up because I wasn't living up to the standards that I created. But then God had to remind me, didn't I tell you just to do this one thing? You created these extra things, and now you're punishing yourself for not meeting it. We constantly do this to ourselves all the time, creating such a high standard for ourselves to live on that God is not putting in place. It's time to lay that down. And the easiest way to do that is to just recognize where you really are and bring how you are in this moment to God. If you're super tired and exhausted, don't put an act on and try and force yourself to be energetic when you go and pursue God. Come to Him and let Him know, I'm tired. I'm not doing well, God. I'm not in the best place and I need your help. He already knows. It's okay. It's about building a relationship with God, not checking a box. And if you can look at these 4 practical steps that I'm going to go over with the eyes of a relationship rather than trying to check a box, then you're going to notice in no time that you're going to have an authentic relationship with God where He shows up throughout your life. So let's break it down. The first thing that you can do is to write a reminder that causes you to think or act towards God on about 5 index cards or about 5 post-it notes. It can literally say anything as long as it causes you to think about God. If you're wanting to hear His voice, then write listen. If you're wanting to speak in tongues, then write tongues. If you're wanting to pray more, then write pray. If you're wanting to get into His word more, then write read. Whatever it may be, make sure to write it down on these cards or post-it notes and then place them in the areas that you frequent the most, like near your computer, near your bed, near your car, in the kitchen. For me, I have read next to my computer, I have listen in my kitchen, and then I have pray on the mirror in my bathroom. It could be whatever you want it to be, as long as it reminds you of the goal that you're going after. which could be anything in regards to pursuing God or just becoming more aware of Him in your life. Any progress is going to be good progress. The second step is to bring God into your daily routines. So that means that you need to examine your daily routines, things that you do every day or every other day. Things that are more task-oriented, that don't take a lot of brain power to use, that you kind of just go through the motions for, like laundry or cooking or cleaning, whatever it may be. Try and practice the activities and goals that you're going after. If it's listening to God, then listen to Him. If it's praying more, pray as you do these activities. If you're trying to get in the Bible more, maybe listen to the Bible on audio. Whatever it may be in whatever area that you're trying to go in. For me, I put a sermon on while I clean, and I listen and talk to God while I do the dishes. We're looking to shift from mindlessly doing these tasks and start to use these tasks as an opportunity to pursue God and bring Him into our life. I love what Brother Lawrence has to say, who's a French monk from the 1600s. He says, "The time of business does not differ from my time of prayer and the noise and clatter of the kitchen." Meaning that he's bringing God into washing the dishes and doing his daily activities, and it doesn't look any different from the times that he has dedicated time to pray. Because pursuing God is a lifelong journey of relationship, and He can join you in even the most mundane tasks. The third step is to give God the first minute of any activity that you do throughout the day. Meaning that if you go on Instagram, give God that first minute of your attention before you begin to scroll. Likewise, if you check your email every single day, then give Him the first minute before you start diving into your emails, or maybe even pray over some of the emails that you have. Listen to His voice before you dive into whatever activity that you're going after. Learning to give God that first minute of any activity that you do will really begin to shift your entire mindset and bring you into a deeper relationship with God. The fourth step is to give God the first few minutes of any breaks you have during the day. If you have a full-time job, then you most likely have a scheduled set of breaks. And the first few minutes that you take on any of those 15-minute or hour-long breaks can be given to God, rather than scrolling on your phone or gossiping at the water cooler. For me, I had a routine on my lunch breaks where I would go to the same location and I would watch a show. But what I started to do is I would pull out my phone and set a timer for 5 minutes and give that first 5 minutes to God. Now I'll be real with you, there were some days where that 5 minutes was not easy. I struggled to get through it. But then there were other days where I went way past the 5 minutes. But having that set time allows for the opportunity for those days where it's so easy and bountiful and the reward is so massive, where you enjoy the presence of God like never before. But only if you are consistently showing up. If you can apply these steps, at least one of them, for 5 minutes a day, your life is going to grow with God exponentially over time. I am not kidding you when I say if you just have a base standard of bringing God into 5 more minutes of your day, your entire relationship with Him in 5 years is going to look radically different than what it looks like today. But one of the other upsides into doing this on a consistent basis is that when you have those hard days, and you will have a structure to apply that will get you back and centered into the presence of God. Because remember, the more you do it when it's easy, the easier it will be to do when it's hard. Let me know in the comment section what step you're going to start applying, and keep me updated on your journey. And if you've never heard God's voice before, make sure to check out my other video on how to hear God's voice. I'll see you there.